What have you two been doing? What's your problem? Been showing your little ass like a flag around. Hey!
The film begins with a young woman reading poetry in a calm, sorrowful voice. She describes a beautiful world filled with green trees and wide, peaceful meadows. But what appears on screen is the opposite: a cold, dark night in the snowy wilderness of Wyoming, near the Wind River Indian Reservation. In the distance, a Native American girl runs barefoot through the snow, crying in fear and pain. The next day, we meet Cory Lambert, a quiet and lonely man who works as a wildlife tracker for the Fish and Game Department. Wearing white camouflage, he moves silently through the snow, following the tracks of a wolf. Later, Cory drives to the town of Lander to pick up his son, Casey, from his ex-wife, who is Native American. Though they treat each other politely, both show clear signs of concern and a protective instinct toward their son. Cory drove Casey to the Native American reservation so his son could stay with his grandparents while his mother was away. Casey's grandfather told him that a predator had recently killed a bull on their farm. Looking at the tracks, Cory quickly recognized them as belonging to a lioness and her two cubs. This proved that Cory was an expert tracker. While following the lion's trail, he found a line of blood and footprints in the snow. They led him to the body of a young girl with a wound on her forehead and frostbitten feet. She was the same girl seen at the beginning of the film. Cory immediately contacted the tribal police, who then reported the case to the FBI. Cory waited with the FBI and Ben, the sheriff of the reservation, where only 6 officers had to cover the entire large area. Agent Jane Banner arrived in the middle of a snowstorm. She looked small and unprepared for the freezing weather, clearly needing warmer clothes. Seeing this, Casey's grandmother offered her some winter clothing that had belonged to her late granddaughter. We learned that Cory once had a daughter about the same age as the girl who died. He and the others rode snowmobiles to the spot where the body was found. Cory confirmed that the victim was 18-year-old Natalie Hansen. While examining the body, Jane noticed blood around the genital area and began to suspect that Natalie had been murdered. She asked Cory about the nearest place where Natalie might have tried to run for safety. He told her about an old abandoned house and a nearby drilling site. Then, Cory examined the footprints in the snow and pieced together what had happened. He noticed the front of the footprints sank deeper, showing that Natalie had been running fast and terrified. He explained that the temperature that night had dropped to -20°C, which caused Natalie's lungs to burst. She collapsed, coughed up blood, and kept running until she had no strength left. Jane found his explanation believable and, impressed by his skills, asked him to help with the investigation. When they returned to town, they visited the medical examiner's office, where the doctor confirmed Cory's account. The medical examiner revealed that Natalie had been sexually assaulted by several unidentified people. Jane felt it was her duty to find out what really happened, but Natalie's death was not officially ruled a homicide. Because of that, she couldn't request an FBI team to assist. In fact, she risked being called back since the case was outside the FBI's jurisdiction. Ben and Cory accompanied Jane to the home of Natalie's parents, Martin and Annie. There, they learned that Natalie had a boyfriend, but her father didn't even know his name. Jane became upset with Martin's lack of concern for his daughter and scolded him, leaving him hurt and angry. When they met Natalie's mother, they couldn't get any helpful information because she was deeply distressed and had been harming herself. Cory, on the other hand, is one of Martin's closest friends. He tells Martin about his own loss of a child, explaining that the only way to heal is to face the pain directly. When Martin learns that Cory is helping with the investigation, he lights a cigarette and asks him to take revenge. Deep down, it seems Cory already shares the same intention. To find more clues, Cory, Jane, and Ben went to a nearby house, the rundown home of Sam Littlefeather, a drug addict who often stayed there. When Sam blew smoke into the air, Jane and Ben started choking and fainted. In the confusion, 2 other addicts tried to run out the back door, but Cory caught them and knocked them out with a shovel. Jane gasped for air and stumbled after Sam, still dizzy and disoriented. Suddenly, Sam appeared and fired his gun, but missed. Jane quickly shot back, hitting him several times and killing him instantly. Later, they discovered that one of the men in the house was Chip Hansen, Natalie's brother. When he learned his sister was dead, he broke down and cried uncontrollably. From the man's unclear answers, Jane realized that Natalie's boyfriend was a white man from out of town. Meanwhile, Cory spotted ski tracks leading up the hill behind the house. Since Natalie's body had been found on the other side, he and Jane decided to follow the trail. As they climbed, they came across another body, half buried in the snow, a man whose remains had been picked apart by a hawk. When they returned to the shelter, the kids stayed silent and refused to talk. They preferred going to prison rather than staying there. Everything changed only after Cory spoke with Chip, Natalie's older brother, whom he had known since childhood. Chip blamed their harsh surroundings for the trouble he and his sister faced. But Natalie had once told him he could have left to build a better life by going to college or joining the military instead of blaming their situation. When Chip accused Cory of failing to protect his own daughter, the tension between them grew and Cory hit him. Afterward, Chip revealed that Natalie's boyfriend was Matt, a security guard at the training site, and that he was about the same age as Cory. Cory passed this information to Ben, who invited him to join them at the training grounds the next day. But Cory refused, saying he already had his own plan. Later, Jane visited Cory's house and told him that the dead man was Matt Rayburn, a security guard at the training site. This confirmed that the body belonged to Natalie's boyfriend, the same person Chip had mentioned earlier. Jane began to wonder why Cory was so willing to help her. Then she saw a photo of his daughter and slowly understood. Cory told her the tragic story of his daughter Emily, who had suffered the same fate as Natalie 3 years earlier when she was just 16. Back then, Cory worked as a salesman and had gone to spend a quiet night with his wife at a hotel. But soon after, Emily's best friend, Natalie, reported that Emily had gone missing. Cory ended his story by revealing that his daughter had been killed in a wolf attack. He had tried to hold back his grief for 3 years, but eventually, he couldn't bear it anymore and broke down. It became clear to everyone that this tragedy had torn his family apart and was likely the main reason his marriage had ended. He later became a hunter, driven by the need to track down the wild animals that killed his daughter, or perhaps the people responsible for her death. Jane felt overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the area and asked to use the restroom. While there, she found a poem written by Emily, which revealed the girl's gift for writing. The next day, Cory went back to the hill to continue investigating Matt's death. Meanwhile, Jane and Ben skied to the oil drilling camp with 4 deputy officers. The head of security greeted them and said that Matt had disappeared a few days earlier after arguing with his girlfriend. Jane noticed that he and several other workers had bruises on their faces. Although they claimed their injuries came from hitting a tree while skiing, Jane wasn't convinced. On the way to Matt's cabin by the ski lift, she decided to test the guards. She told them that Natalie was still alive and had reported her boyfriend missing. The head security guard looked shocked and said that couldn't be true because he had heard on the radio that Natalie's body had been found. Jane grew even more suspicious and pointed out that the radio had never mentioned the victim's name. At that moment, one of the deputies noticed that the security guards were slowly surrounding them. He panicked, and a fight nearly broke out as everyone pulled out their guns. Using her authority as an FBI agent, Jane quickly took control and calmed the situation. After things settled, she walked to a nearby mobile home and knocked on the door. At that moment, the scene flashed back to Natalie's last night, when Matt opened that same door and greeted her. After sharing a hug and a kiss, the scene shifts to Natalie and Matt lying in bed talking about their future together. As they talk, Matt's drunken co-workers begin pulling at the curtains near the sled outside. Natalie quickly closes them again, but one of the men, a drunk named Pete, keeps tugging at the curtains and teasing them. Pete kept joking and even tried to peek under the blanket, which made Matt furious. Matt got out of bed and shoved him, but Pete refused to stop. Matt then tackled him, turning it into rough play. During the commotion, another man insulted Natalie with racist comments, and she slapped him in anger. Pete took advantage of the chaos and pulled down Natalie's pants. Matt hit Pete several times, and the situation quickly turned violent. A brutal fight broke out between them. Natalie tried to help Matt, but both were struck hard on the head and knocked unconscious. When Natalie woke up, she realized Pete was assaulting her. When Matt regained consciousness, he attacked Pete again, but the others ganged up on him and beat him badly. Realizing she couldn't save her boyfriend, Natalie ran away to escape, but she was eventually killed. Back in the present, Jane is still knocking on the door, identifying herself as an FBI agent. Meanwhile, Cory finds snowmobile tracks leading from the drilling site to the place where Matt's body was discovered. This proves that the guards had moved the body to cover up the truth, with the tracks continuing all the way to Sam's house. Cory tried to warn Ben about the danger from the guards. But just as Jane was about to step away from the door, a loud explosion went off, and she was shot in the chest. The guards then opened fire on the tribal police officers. A fierce gunfight broke out, but in the end, the guards overpowered them and killed all the officers. Jane was hurt in the blast, but her bulletproof vest saved her life. As she tried to reload her gun, the head guard grabbed it from her. Just as he was about to shoot, a bullet suddenly hit him. It was Cory, hidden in the snow, who had fired the shot. When the other guards tried to find him, Cory opened fire without hesitation. Cory fired at the sled again, hitting it, but Pete managed to escape through the window and run up the mountain. After giving Jane first aid, Cory followed his tracks up the hill. Hearing the sound of a snowmobile, Pete panicked and looked around in fear. When he turned to check behind him, Cory shot him with his rifle, knocking him unconscious. When Pete regained consciousness, he found himself on a snowy mountaintop, barefoot, with his toes starting to freeze. Cory told him he would get a second chance if he confessed to everything. Pete admitted that he had killed Matt and assaulted Natalie. Keeping his word, Cory let him go, saying that Natalie had run 6 miles barefoot through the snow, while he doubted Pete could even run 600 feet. Pete tried to chase after Cory, but the freezing air quickly destroyed his lungs. He collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath, and died instantly. Later, Cory visited the hospital, where Jane was recovering and felt lucky to be alive. But Cory reminded her that in the wilderness, luck doesn't exist. Cory realized that in such a harsh place, only those with strength and spirit survive, while the weak give up. Jane broke down in tears, thinking about how Natalie had run 6 miles through the freezing cold, fighting to stay alive. Later, Cory visited Martin and found him sitting silently with a dark, hopeless look, as if he were ready to take his own life. To comfort Martin, Cory told him about the men responsible for Natalie's death and how each of them had been punished, especially the one who caused her the most pain. Martin was deeply moved and asked Cory to stay with him for a while, so they could share their grief together. Losing a daughter in such a brutal way had changed both men's understanding of what true pain meant. One image can make a person lose hope, while another can inspire them to grow stronger. In the end, both weakness and strength exist before us, just like the challenges we face in everyday life. The choice of who we become is always ours. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and share your thoughts about the film in the comments.